Your soulmate is feeling the distance you no longer fear. Don't scroll, stay with me, because this message is arriving at a moment when something very quiet but very powerful has shifted inside you. The distance that once made your heart race, the silence that once felt unbearable, no longer holds the same power over you. You are not fighting it anymore. You are not chasing it away. And that inner calm has created a change your soulmate can feel deeply, even if they don't yet understand it. Listen to this carefully, because for a long time distance felt like danger. It felt like rejection, abandonment, or the beginning of the end. Whenever space appeared, your instincts pushed you to close it quickly. You explained, reassured, reached out, and held the connection together with effort. But something inside you grew tired of living in that constant state of emotional alertness. You reached a point where you stopped running from space and learned how to stand peacefully within it. Don't scroll, because that moment changed everything. The day you stopped fearing distance was the day the emotional balance shifted. You didn't become cold. You didn't stop caring. You simply stopped letting fear dictate how you show up. And when fear leaves one person, the entire dynamic changes. Your soulmate feels that shift now more than ever. Stay with me, because your soulmate is experiencing this distance differently than before. Earlier, space felt temporary to them. They could sense that you would eventually bridge it, soften it, or erase it. That expectation gave them comfort. Now, the distance feels open. It feels unresolved. Not because you are pulling away, but because you are no longer chasing closeness to feel safe. Listen to this, because your calm has removed predictability. Predictability once made distance easy for them. They knew you would reach out. They knew you would hold things together. Now, without that certainty, the space feels heavier. Distance becomes loud when it is no longer filled by someone else's effort. Don't scroll, because your soulmate may now be feeling unsettled without knowing why. They may feel restless, distracted, or emotionally off balance. This is not because the connection weakened. It is because the emotional safety net created by your fear is gone. When fear disappears, responsibility enters the room. Stay with me, because this stage often brings reflection for them. They begin to notice the quiet. They notice that you are not reacting the same way. They notice that you are no longer trying to manage the space. That observation forces awareness. Awareness can feel uncomfortable, especially when it reveals how much of the closeness depended on one person's emotional effort. Listen carefully, because roles are slowly reversing now. You are no longer the one anxiously waiting for signs. You are no longer measuring love by frequency or reassurance. You are grounded. Meanwhile, your soulmate may start feeling the uncertainty you once carried. Not as punishment, but as balance being restored. Don't scroll, because this stage can feel strange for you too. You may still love deeply, but you are no longer consumed by the gap. You are present in your own life again. That presence does not weaken love. It strengthens your sense of self. And when you are rooted in yourself, the connection no longer controls your emotional state. Stay with me, because your soulmate may initially misread your calm. They may wonder if you stopped caring. They may fear losing you. But beneath those thoughts is a deeper realization forming. You stop depending on their behavior for emotional stability. That realization forces them to examine their own role instead of relying on yours. Listen to this, because distance is now acting like a mirror. It is showing them what the connection feels like without your fear filling the space. It is showing them where effort lives and where it does not. Distance reveals intention when fear is no longer doing the work. Don't scroll, because you are also learning something crucial. Calm is not indifference. Calm is safety. You finally feel safe within yourself. That safety allows you to let things unfold naturally instead of forcing outcomes. You are no longer trying to control where this goes. You are allowing truth to emerge. Stay with me, because your soulmate is now facing a quiet question. Are they willing to cross this distance with intention, or were they relying on your fear to keep things close? That question does not need to be spoken. It is being felt. Listen carefully, because you may feel moments of guilt for not fearing distance anymore. You may wonder if you became detached. But detachment feels empty. What you feel now is steady. That steadiness means you stopped living in emotional survival mode. Don't scroll, because this is only the beginning of this message. What happens next will unfold naturally from this new dynamic. But one thing is already clear. You are no longer afraid of distance. And because of that, distance no longer controls you. Stay with me as we continue, because the calm you found is not accidental. It is the foundation of whatever comes next, whether that is reunion, clarity, or release. If this message resonated with your heart, take a moment to leave a comment and share what you're feeling. Sometimes putting clarity into words helps the heart settle. If these messages bring you peace and understanding, gently like this video and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. New messages arrive exactly when they are needed. And if you feel called to, share this message with someone who may also be learning not to fear distance anymore. Don't scroll, stay with me, because now the distance you no longer fear begins to move from being an internal shift to an emotional experience your soulmate cannot ignore anymore. What felt calm and grounding for you has started to feel heavy and noticeable for them. The same space that once felt manageable now carries weight, because it is no longer being softened by your anxiety or effort. And that difference is changing how they feel when they sit alone with their thoughts. Listen to this carefully, because your soulmate is starting to realize that the distance feels different not because you are doing less, but because you are doing something new. You are no longer rushing to close the gap. You are no longer trying to fix silence before it grows uncomfortable. You are allowing space to exist without fear. That choice removes emotional predictability, and predictability once made everything feel safe for them. Don't scroll, because this is where unease begins to surface on their side. Not dramatic unease, but a quiet restlessness. They may find themselves thinking about you at unexpected moments. They may feel unsettled without knowing why. This is not because the bond weakened. It is because the emotional balance has shifted. When one person stops carrying fear, that fear often shows up somewhere else. Stay with me, because your soulmate is now feeling the distance as something unresolved. Before, they could sense that time would bring you closer again. Now, time feels uncertain. And uncertainty forces reflection. They are beginning to notice how much of the closeness relied on your emotional availability, your reassurance, your willingness to bridge space again and again. Listen to this, because this stage often brings internal questioning for them. They may ask themselves why the silence feels louder now. Why your calm feels unfamiliar. Why the connection feels less secure even though nothing dramatic happened. These questions are not signs of disinterest. They are signs that the old emotional structure is no longer holding things together. Don't scroll, because roles are quietly reversing here. You are no longer watching the distance with fear. You are grounded in your own life. Meanwhile, your soulmate may be starting to feel the gap more deeply. Not because you want them to, but because emotional balance is being restored. When fear leaves one side, it does not disappear. It simply stops being carried by you. Stay with me, because this is where your calm becomes powerful. Not loud, not attention-seeking, but steady. You are not reacting to every shift. You are not adjusting yourself to restore comfort. You are letting reality exist as it is. That steadiness forces your soulmate to face the distance honestly instead of leaning on your effort. Listen carefully, because your soulmate may interpret your calm in different ways at first. They may wonder if you stopped caring. They may fear losing you. They may feel confused by your lack of urgency. But beneath those surface thoughts is a deeper realization forming. Your emotional stability no longer depends on them. And that realization can feel unsettling for someone who unconsciously relied on your fear. Don't scroll, because distance is now acting like a mirror for them. It reflects intention. It reflects effort. It reflects where emotional responsibility truly lives. Without your fear filling the space, what remains is honest. And honesty can be uncomfortable when it reveals imbalance. Stay with me, because this stage can also feel unfamiliar for you. You may still feel love, but it no longer feels anxious. You may still care, but it no longer feels consuming. You are learning that closeness does not have to be constant to be real. You are learning that love does not disappear just because space exists. Listen to this, because you may feel moments of sadness mixed with peace. Sadness for how things used to be. Peace because you are no longer emotionally exhausted. Both feelings can exist together. Healing often feels like that. It is not joy replacing pain. It is calm replacing chaos. Don't scroll, because your soulmate is now being asked a quiet question by the distance. Are they willing to move toward you without being pulled by fear? Are they willing to cross space with intention instead of comfort? Distance does not ask this question harshly. It simply waits for the answer. Stay with me, because you are not trying to force an outcome. You are allowing truth to surface. That truth may come as effort. It may come as silence. Either way, it will feel clearer than before. You are no longer living in interpretation mode. You are living in observation. Listen carefully, because you are also learning to trust yourself more deeply. You trust that you will be okay regardless of what happens next. That trust allows you to stay present without anxiety. It allows you to let go of the idea that love must always feel urgent to be real. Don't scroll, because this distance is not weakening something meant to last. It is strengthening what is real by removing dependence. Love that survives without fear becomes grounded. Love that collapses without fear was never stable. Either way, distance is doing honest work. Stay with me, because your soulmate's next steps will come from this honesty. Whether they step forward or remain still, you will feel the truth more clearly than ever before. There will be less guessing, less emotional noise, less confusion. Listen to this, because you are no longer asking distance to disappear. You are letting it speak. And it is speaking now, slowly but clearly. Don't scroll, because this part of the journey is about patience without anxiety. You are not waiting in fear. You are standing in trust. That difference changes everything. If this message reflects what you've been feeling, take a moment to share your thoughts in the comments. Sometimes writing it out helps the heart settle. If these messages bring you peace, clarity, or comfort, gently like this video and subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. These messages arrive right when they're needed. And if you feel called to, share this message with someone who may also be learning not to fear distance anymore. Don't scroll, stay with me, because now the distance you no longer fear has reached a point where it is no longer subtle for your soulmate. It is no longer something they can ignore or explain away. What once felt like a quiet shift is now pressing on their awareness in a way that feels undeniable. The space between you has become emotionally loud for them precisely because it has become emotionally quiet for you. Listen to this carefully, because your soulmate is starting to realize that the distance feels heavier not because you pulled away, but because you stopped holding it together. Before, space existed, but it was managed. Your reassurance softened it. Your effort bridged it. Your fear kept it from growing uncomfortable. Now, without that emotional management, the distance feels raw. And raw space demands honesty. Don't scroll, because this is where your soulmate begins to feel something they were protected from before: responsibility. Not blame, not guilt, but responsibility for how the connection actually functions. When you stopped fearing distance, you stopped compensating for imbalance. And when compensation ends, imbalance becomes visible. That visibility is unsettling. Stay with me, because your soulmate may now find themselves replaying moments from the past. Not just memories of closeness, but memories of silence too. They may notice how often you were the one to reach out. How often you were the one to clarify. How often you were the one to keep emotional continuity alive. Those memories feel different now, because the present has changed. Listen to this, because distance has a way of reorganizing memory. It strips away fantasy and leaves reality. Your soulmate is starting to see the connection not through comfort, but through contrast. The contrast between when you feared distance and now, when you don't. That contrast highlights how much emotional effort once came from you. Don't scroll, because this is where emotional unease turns into reflection. They may feel restless. They may feel distracted. They may feel moments of longing they cannot easily explain. This is not because the bond disappeared. It is because the bond is no longer being stabilized by your anxiety. Without fear holding things together, feelings have to stand on their own. Stay with me, because your calm has changed the emotional temperature of the connection. Calm does not chase. Calm does not beg. Calm does not panic. Calm observes. And observation makes someone feel seen in ways they may not be ready for. Your soulmate feels that observation now, even if you are not saying a word. Listen carefully, because your soulmate may be trying to understand why your energy feels different. They may wonder if you stopped caring. They may fear that you are slowly moving on. But beneath those surface thoughts is a deeper realization forming. You stopped anchoring your emotional safety to their behavior. That realization forces them to confront their own level of emotional investment. Don't scroll, because this is where distance becomes a test without being intentional. Not a test you created, but one that naturally emerges when fear is removed. The test is simple but uncomfortable. Who moves closer when fear is no longer pulling them? Who speaks when silence is no longer being filled for them? Who chooses intention over convenience? Stay with me, because you may notice that you are no longer emotionally scanning the distance. You are not interpreting every pause. You are not measuring time. You are present in your own life. That presence is grounding you in a way you may not have experienced before. You are no longer living in anticipation. You are living in alignment. Listen to this, because alignment has consequences. When you align with yourself, the connection must either align with you or fall out of sync. That is not cruelty. That is honesty. Your soulmate is now feeling whether they can align with this version of you or not. Don't scroll, because your soulmate may feel an urge to reach out, but hesitate. Not because they don't care, but because they sense that the old dynamic is gone. Reaching out now requires more than familiarity. It requires presence. It requires clarity. It requires stepping into the space instead of waiting for you to collapse it. Stay with me, because this stage can feel emotionally quiet but mentally loud for them. Quiet, because you are not reacting. Loud, because they are thinking. Thinking about what the distance means now. Thinking about what it would take to cross it. Thinking about what happens if they don't. Listen carefully, because you are also learning something essential. You are learning that peace does not come from closeness alone. It comes from not abandoning yourself. Distance no longer feels like a threat because you are no longer using connection to regulate your worth. That is why you feel steadier now. Don't scroll, because you may feel moments of tenderness for your soulmate during this phase. You may understand that this is difficult for them. Compassion does not require you to return to fear. You can care without carrying. You can love without chasing. You are learning that difference now. Stay with me, because distance is now doing the work conversations could not. It is revealing intention without words. It is revealing capacity without promises. It is revealing truth without drama. That truth may arrive slowly, but it will arrive clearly. Listen to this, because whatever your soulmate chooses next will feel more honest than anything before. If they step forward, it will be with awareness, not assumption. If they stay still, it will reveal limitation, not mystery. Either way, confusion is losing its grip. Don't scroll, because you are no longer afraid of either outcome. That does not mean you don't care. It means you trust yourself enough to handle reality. Fear once kept you attached to uncertainty. Calm is setting you free from it. Stay with me, because this distance is not separating you from love. It is separating you from illusion. It is removing the idea that love must feel anxious to be real. It is showing you that what is meant to stay will move toward you without fear doing the work. Listen carefully, because this is where emotional maturity settles in. You are no longer asking, will they come closer? You are noticing, how do I feel in this space? And you feel steadier, clearer, more present. That tells you everything you need to know. Don't scroll, because the distance you no longer fear has done exactly what it needed to do. It has shifted power from anxiety to truth. It has shifted focus from them to you. It has shifted the connection from guessing to clarity. Stay with me as this unfolds, because whatever comes next will not confuse you. You have already crossed the hardest part. You stopped fearing distance. And once fear leaves, love has only two options left. To show up honestly or to step aside quietly. Either way, peace follows. Don't scroll, stay with me, because now the distance you no longer fear has settled into something steady and unmistakable. It is no longer shifting or teaching in fragments. It has become a quiet line in the sand, and your soulmate can feel that line even if they don't have words for it yet. This is the moment where space turns from sensation into meaning, where what you are no longer afraid of begins to define the direction of the connection. Listen to this carefully, because your soulmate is starting to sense that your calm is not a strategy. It is not silence used to provoke. It is not distance used to test. It is a grounded state you've arrived at after carrying too much for too long. When someone realizes that your steadiness is real, not temporary, they are forced to ask a deeper question: can I meet them where they are now, or was I relying on who they used to be? Don't scroll, because this is where the distance begins to feel honest to them. Honest distance does not threaten. It clarifies. It removes excuses and reveals effort. Without your fear smoothing the edges, your soulmate is noticing how the space reflects their own readiness. Distance is no longer something they can wait out. It is something they must respond to with intention or accept as truth. Stay with me, because you may notice that your reactions have changed completely. You are not scanning for signs. You are not replaying conversations. You are not measuring time. You are present in your own life, breathing normally again. That presence changes the emotional gravity of everything. When you stop orbiting someone else's behavior, the center of the connection shifts back to you. Listen carefully, because your soulmate may now feel the weight of that shift. Not in a dramatic way, but in moments of quiet realization. They may notice that you are not reaching to stabilize the space. They may notice that the distance is not being managed. That awareness creates pressure, and pressure reveals capacity. Some people rise when pressure asks for growth. Others retreat when it asks for accountability. Don't scroll, because this stage can bring subtle attempts from your soulmate to restore the old comfort. Familiar tones. Light check-ins. Casual messages that avoid depth. These are not necessarily manipulative. Often, they are unconscious attempts to see if the distance can be softened without being addressed. How you respond matters less in words and more in energy. You are no longer collapsing space for comfort, and they can feel that. Stay with me, because you are also learning to sit with unanswered questions without anxiety. Questions like what will happen next, whether they will step forward, whether this will end or deepen. These questions no longer dominate your nervous system. You can hold them lightly. That ability is a sign of emotional maturity settling in. Listen to this, because your soulmate is now experiencing the distance as something that reflects their own pace. When you feared space, your urgency masked their hesitation. Now that fear is gone, hesitation becomes visible. Visibility can be uncomfortable, especially when it reveals that someone has been moving slower than the connection required. Don't scroll, because you may feel compassion rising in you during this phase. Compassion does not mean rescuing. It means understanding without sacrificing alignment. You can see that this is hard for them and still choose not to carry what is not yours. That balance is something you did not have before. Now you do. Stay with me, because this is where the distance stops feeling like a gap and starts feeling like a threshold. To cross it now requires intention, presence, and honesty. There is no fear pulling anyone forward. Only choice. Choice reveals truth faster than urgency ever could. Listen carefully, because you are no longer trying to influence the outcome. You are allowing it to arrive. Allowing does not mean giving up. It means trusting that whatever shows up will be real. Real effort or real absence. Real connection or real closure. Either way, reality replaces confusion. Don't scroll, because you may notice a quiet confidence anchoring you now. Not the kind that announces itself, but the kind that stays. You trust yourself to respond wisely instead of reactively. You trust your intuition to guide you. You trust that love meant for you will not require fear to stay alive. Stay with me, because this confidence is changing how you interpret distance. Distance is no longer a verdict. It is information. It tells you who moves when space exists. It tells you who needs fear to feel close. It tells you who can meet you calmly without needing chaos. Listen to this, because your soulmate's inner dialogue may be growing louder now. They may feel torn between comfort and courage. Comfort would keep things vague. Courage would require clarity. Distance presses that choice gently but firmly. It does not rush. It waits. Don't scroll, because this waiting feels different for you now. You are not waiting in hope or dread. You are waiting in trust. Trust that you will not abandon yourself again. Trust that whatever happens will make sense once it arrives. Trust that peace is no longer conditional. Stay with me, because this is also where old fears try to resurface quietly. Fears about being forgotten, replaced, or left behind. Notice how quickly they pass now. They do not take over. They do not run the story. That tells you how much you have changed. Listen carefully, because you are learning that love does not require constant closeness to be secure. It requires truth. It requires presence when it matters. It requires the willingness to cross space without being dragged by fear. Anything less eventually exhausts the heart. Don't scroll, because the distance you no longer fear is no longer growing. It has stabilized. And in that stability, answers begin to form naturally. You will not have to chase them. They will arrive through action, consistency, or stillness. Stay with me, because you are approaching a moment where clarity becomes unavoidable. Not dramatic clarity, but calm clarity. The kind that settles rather than shocks. You will feel it in your body before you name it in your mind. Listen to this final truth. When you stopped fearing distance, you stopped negotiating your worth. You allowed space to become honest. And honest space cannot lie. Whatever moves toward you now will come without fear doing the work. Whatever does not was never meant to stay. From that understanding, peace becomes permanent, not temporary. Don't scroll, stay with me, because this is where everything the distance has been teaching finally settles into quiet truth. What once felt like uncertainty has softened into understanding. The space you no longer fear has completed its work, not by pushing anything away, but by allowing reality to reveal itself without pressure. You are standing at a place where nothing needs to be forced, explained, or chased anymore. Listen to this carefully, because the most important realization now is not about your soulmate's next move. It is about your inner state. You are no longer waiting in tension. You are no longer holding your breath for clarity. You are grounded in yourself. That grounding changes how every possible outcome feels. Reunion no longer feels like survival. Separation no longer feels like collapse. Both feel manageable, and that is how you know you have grown. Don't scroll, because your soulmate feels this completion too, even if they cannot name it. They sense that the emotional dynamic has stabilized in a new way. They feel that you are not leaning into the distance, but you are also not fighting it. You are simply present. That presence removes emotional leverage built on fear and replaces it with truth. Stay with me, because this is where honesty becomes unavoidable. If your soulmate chooses to move toward you now, it will not be casual. It will not be vague. It will come with clarity, effort, and intention, because nothing less can cross this space anymore. And if they do not move forward, that stillness will speak just as clearly. Silence now carries answers instead of questions. Listen to this, because either outcome brings peace. That may feel unfamiliar. Peace does not mean the absence of feeling. It means the absence of inner conflict. You can feel love without fear. You can feel sadness without self-doubt. You can feel hope without losing yourself. That balance is something you once searched for in others. Now it lives inside you. Don't scroll, because this ending is not dramatic, but it is decisive. The old version of this connection cannot return. Too much awareness has entered the space. You cannot unlearn what calm feels like. You cannot forget how it feels to trust yourself instead of chasing reassurance. That chapter has closed naturally, without force. Stay with me, because this is also where forgiveness deepens. Forgiveness for yourself, for the times you feared distance, for the times you overgave, for the moments you thought love required anxiety. You were learning. You were surviving. You did the best you could with what you knew then. Now you know more. Listen carefully, because the distance showed you something priceless. Love does not disappear in space. Illusion does. Dependency does. Fear does. What remains after fear leaves is truth. And truth may arrive quietly, but it lasts. Don't scroll, because if your soulmate steps forward now, you will feel it immediately in your body. It will feel calm, not overwhelming. Clear, not confusing. Mutual, not one-sided. You will not have to decode it. You will not have to question it. Peace will accompany it. Stay with me, because if your soulmate does not step forward, you will still feel whole. You will grieve, but you will not shrink. You will remember, but you will not beg. You will move forward carrying dignity instead of doubt. That is a victory your past self could not imagine. Listen to this, because you are stepping into a new way of loving. A way that honors space. A way that values consistency over intensity. A way that trusts actions more than promises. This way of loving will protect you from repeating old cycles. Don't scroll, because you are also learning that distance is not rejection. Distance is information. It shows who is willing to cross space with intention and who needs fear to feel connected. You are no longer afraid of that information. You welcome it. Stay with me, because the calm you found is not temporary. It is a foundation. From this foundation, relationships will feel different. You will recognize safety faster. You will walk away sooner from what feels draining. You will stay where peace exists. Listen carefully, because you may still feel moments of tenderness for what could have been. Tenderness does not mean you should return to fear. It means you cared deeply. Caring deeply does not require self-abandonment. Don't scroll, because this final truth matters. You did not lose love by no longer fearing distance. You removed fear so love could show itself honestly. And honesty is kinder than uncertainty, even when it changes the story you hoped for. Stay with me as I say this gently. If this message resonated with you, you can share a few words in the comments. Sometimes naming clarity helps it settle even deeper. If these messages bring you comfort, insight, or peace, you are welcome to like this video and subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. These messages reach you for a reason. And if you feel called to, share this message with someone who is also learning that distance does not have to be feared. Don't scroll past this ending. You are not losing connection. You are gaining truth. And from truth, peace always follows.